Imagine this. You wake up in the morning, and before your feet even touch the ground, your hand automatically reaches for your phone. Notifications are already waiting for you. Emails, WhatsApp messages, Instagram likes, Twitter updates, breaking news, maybe even a few work alerts. You tell yourself, I'll just check for 2 minutes. But those 2 minutes stretch into 20, then into 40, and before you realize it, your morning momentum is gone. You feel like you've started the day, but in reality, you haven't accomplished anything meaningful yet. This experience is not unique to you. It has become the default reality of our modern lives. We live in a world that constantly demands our attention, and as a result, most of us spend our days operating on the surface level, consumed by what Cal Newport calls shallow work. Shallow work refers to the type of tasks that keep you busy but don't push your mind or your abilities to the limit. Things like scrolling through emails, responding to chat messages, checking analytics dashboards, attending repetitive meetings, updating spreadsheets, or posting quick updates on social media. All of these might feel like work, but they don't move the needle in any significant way. They're logistical, often reactive, and in most cases, they don't require creativity, strategy, or deep problem-solving. The tragedy is that we spend the majority of our working hours drowning in shallow work. Why? Because shallow work is easy. It gives us the illusion of productivity. Every time you reply to an email, you get a small dopamine hit. Your brain tells you, good job, you achieved something. Every time you cross off a small task from your to-do list, you feel like you're moving forward. But at the end of the day, when you look back, you realize that none of these small wins added up to real progress. The important projects, the book you wanted to write, the business idea you wanted to develop, the research you needed to finish, or the big creative breakthrough you were hoping for, are still untouched. You've been busy, yes. But busy is not the same as productive. This is the crisis of the modern working world. We are busier than ever before, but our output, the kind of work that truly matters, has not kept pace. Technology was supposed to make us more efficient, but ironically, it has made us more distracted. We are in the middle of what many psychologists and researchers call the attention economy. Every app, every platform, every website is designed to capture and hold your attention for as long as possible. Companies don't compete for your money first, they compete for your focus. Because once they have your attention, your money usually follows. And in this war for attention, your ability to concentrate deeply has become the biggest casualty. Cal Newport points out that we live in an age where deep focus is more valuable than ever. The modern economy rewards people who can master complex skills quickly, solve difficult problems, and create original, high-value work. Yet at the same time, the environment we live in constantly pushes us toward distraction. Think about it. Even when you're working on an important project, how often do you find yourself checking your phone? How many browser tabs do you keep open? How many times do you get interrupted by Slack notifications or emails? Research shows that the average office worker gets interrupted every 11 minutes, and it can take up to 25 minutes to regain full focus after a single interruption. That means most of us are never really focusing at all. We are just hopping from one shallow task to another, never going deep enough to produce something extraordinary. The result is what Newport calls the shallow work crisis. Our days are consumed by activity, but our careers and personal growth stagnate. Students prepare for exams by cramming, but they don't learn deeply. Professionals spend their days attending meetings and replying to emails but rarely innovate. Entrepreneurs get caught in the cycle of running social media, networking events, and surface-level marketing, but they don't find time to refine their product or strategy. Even creative people, writers, artists, musicians, often spend more time promoting themselves online than actually creating. But the cost of shallow work goes beyond productivity. It affects our mental health too. Constant context switching drains our cognitive energy. Every time you move from one shallow task to another, your brain has to reset. It's like running your computer with too many programs open. It slows down, overheats, and eventually crashes. That's why so many of us feel mentally exhausted at the end of the day, even though we didn't produce anything substantial. There's also a psychological cost. Shallow work robs us of a sense of accomplishment. Human beings derive meaning and satisfaction when they overcome challenges, when they create something new, when they push their limits. Shallow tasks can never provide that fulfillment. That's why so many people today feel like they are constantly working, but also feel strangely empty and unfulfilled. Cal Newport's book Deep Work begins with this recognition of the crisis. He argues that if you want to thrive in today's world, you cannot afford to live only in the shallow. You need to reclaim your ability to focus, to concentrate without distraction, and to immerse yourself in cognitively demanding tasks. That is where true value is created. That is where breakthroughs happen. And that is what sets apart the mediocre from the extraordinary. So, the first step is awareness. We need to honestly evaluate our own lives. How much of your day goes into shallow work? How often do you find yourself reacting instead of creating? Are you constantly pulled into the urgency of small tasks, while the important but difficult work remains undone? If you can answer these questions honestly, you'll begin to see the magnitude of the problem. The shallow work crisis is real, and unless you consciously fight against it, you will be swept away by it. This is why Newport emphasizes that deep work is not just a productivity hack, it is a superpower. In a distracted world, focus is your competitive edge. In an age of endless noise, depth is your opportunity. While everyone else is running around, chasing notifications and burning out in shallow tasks, the person who can cultivate the ability to focus deeply will stand out, achieve more, and live a far more meaningful life. And this is what brings us to the core idea of Newport's philosophy. If you want to thrive in your career, your studies, your business, or your creative pursuits, you must escape the shallow and learn to dive deep. Now that we've seen how shallow work is consuming our lives, let's shift to the opposite side of the spectrum, the concept that Cal Newport calls deep work. If shallow work is about staying busy without moving forward, deep work is about entering a state where every ounce of your mental energy is directed toward a single meaningful task. It's about concentration without distraction, pushing your cognitive abilities to their limit, and producing results that are rare, valuable, and impossible to replicate with half-hearted effort. So what exactly is deep work? Newport defines it very clearly: professional activities performed in a state of distraction-free concentration that push your cognitive capabilities to their limit. These efforts create new value, improve your skill, and are hard to replicate. Let's unpack this definition, because each part is crucial. First, deep work is done in distraction-free concentration. That means no buzzing phone, no constant email notifications, no half-watching YouTube in the background, and no mental juggling of 5 different priorities. It means carving out a space, both physical and mental, where your focus belongs to one thing and one thing only. When you give your undivided attention to a task, your brain enters a mode that scientists call flow. You've probably experienced it before. Maybe while writing, coding, solving a math problem, or even playing a sport or an instrument. Time seems to disappear. Hours pass like minutes. You feel both challenged and capable, fully immersed in the task. That's deep work. Second, deep work is about pushing your cognitive abilities to the limit. Shallow tasks don't stretch you, they keep you comfortable. But deep work demands effort. It forces you to wrestle with complexity, to think critically, to innovate, to solve problems that don't have obvious answers. For example, writing a book chapter that explains a difficult concept clearly. Designing a new piece of software from scratch. Conducting original research that no one has done before. Composing music. Creating art. These are tasks that demand everything you've got, and when you're done, you've grown as a person. Third, deep work creates new value. This is what makes it so powerful in today's economy. Anybody can answer emails or attend meetings. That kind of work can be outsourced, automated, or handled by AI. But creating something new, solving hard problems, or producing insights that no one else can, that is where human beings shine. That's the work that companies pay for, that audiences admire, that changes lives. Finally, deep work is hard to replicate. Think about it. Anyone can copy-paste information from the internet, but not everyone can write a brilliant research paper. Anyone can start a social media account, but not everyone can produce a unique, insightful documentary. Anyone can crunch numbers in Excel, but not everyone can invent a breakthrough algorithm. Deep work makes you irreplaceable because the output cannot simply be copied or automated. It reflects your unique mind at its best. Now, why does deep work matter so much today? Newport argues that in the modern knowledge economy, 2 abilities will determine your success. The ability to quickly master hard things. The ability to produce at an elite level, in terms of both quality and speed. And here's the catch. Both of these require deep work. You cannot learn a difficult skill, say, machine learning, advanced design, or philosophy, if you're checking Instagram every 5 minutes. You cannot produce high-quality output, whether it's a research thesis, a book, or a business plan, if you're constantly distracted by shallow tasks. Only deep work allows you to reach that level of mastery and production. To make this clearer, let's contrast deep work with shallow work again, using real-world examples. Imagine 2 writers. The first one spends his day answering emails, scrolling through Twitter, posting small updates, and maybe writing a few hundred words here and there in between distractions. The second one switches off her phone, blocks her internet access, and spends 4 uninterrupted hours every morning fully focused on her manuscript. Who do you think will finish their book faster? Who will write with more clarity, depth, and creativity? It's obvious. The same applies to students preparing for exams, entrepreneurs building companies, or scientists working on discoveries. The person who can go deep consistently will always outperform the person stuck in the shallow. There's also a neurological reason why deep work is so powerful. Neuroscientists have shown that when you focus deeply on a skill, you strengthen the myelin around your neurons. Myelin is like insulation around an electrical wire. It helps signals travel faster and more efficiently in your brain. The more you practice focus, the stronger your mental circuits become. This is why elite performers, athletes, musicians, mathematicians, spend so much time in deep practice. They know that growth happens at the edge of your ability, not in the comfort zone of shallow tasks. Another important concept is what researchers call attention residue. Every time you switch from one task to another, a residue of your attention remains stuck in the previous task. That's why if you check your email while trying to write an essay, part of your brain is still thinking about that email, and your writing suffers. Multitasking is not real, it's just rapid task switching, and it destroys depth. Deep work, by contrast, eliminates attention residue by forcing you to stay with one task long enough to make real progress. But deep work is not just about productivity, it's also about meaning. Newport makes a profound argument. In a world where so much of our life feels fragmented and shallow, deep work provides a sense of purpose. When you immerse yourself in meaningful work, you're not just producing external results, you're also shaping your own mind, building your character, and living a life of focus instead of distraction. Have you ever noticed how satisfying it feels to finish a chapter of a book, solve a difficult puzzle, or complete a project you truly cared about? That sense of fulfillment is not accidental, it comes from the depth of the work. And here's the paradox. Deep work is becoming both more valuable and more rare. Valuable, because our world desperately needs people who can produce quality in the sea of noise. Rare, because distractions are only multiplying. Think of it as supply and demand. The supply of people capable of deep work is shrinking, because most people are too distracted. The demand for deep work is rising, because businesses, industries, and society need it more than ever. What does this mean? If you can cultivate deep work, you gain a huge advantage. You become the rare person who can master complex skills, produce high-value results, and live a meaningful life in the process. This is why Newport insists that deep work is a superpower. It's not just another productivity trick. It's not just about working harder. It's about training your mind to do what most people can no longer do. Focus deeply, consistently, and meaningfully. In a world where almost everyone else is distracted, the ability to concentrate is like a secret weapon. It allows you to rise above the noise, to stand out, and to create something truly valuable. So when we ask, why does deep work matter? The answer is clear. Because without it, we are condemned to the shallow, to a life of busyness without progress, distraction without growth, effort without fulfillment. But with it, we unlock our true potential. We build skills that last a lifetime. We produce work that matters. And we live lives that are not only successful, but also deeply satisfying. So now that we understand what deep work is and why it matters, the next question is obvious. How do we actually do it? How do we fight against the constant noise of our modern world and build the ability to focus deeply? This is where Cal Newport's rules come in. His book isn't just philosophy, it's also practical. He gives us 4 concrete rules to live by, and in this section, we'll look at the first 2. Work deeply and embrace boredom. Let's start with Rule 1. Work deeply. It sounds obvious, doesn't it? If you want to do deep work, you should, well, work deeply. But here's the problem. Wanting to focus is not the same as being able to focus. Most of us want to do meaningful work, but our environment and habits make it almost impossible. We tell ourselves, today I'll be productive, but then our phone pings, our email loads up, our mind wanders, and before we know it, we're lost in the shallow again. Newport says that if you want to succeed at deep work, you can't rely on willpower alone. Willpower is like a battery. It gets drained as the day goes on. If your strategy for deep work is just, I'll resist distractions, you're setting yourself up for failure. Instead, you need rituals and routines. You need to design your environment and your schedule so that deep work becomes automatic, not a daily battle. Think about monks, scientists, or even great artists. They didn't rely on raw discipline every single day. They built habits and structures that made their focus effortless. This is why Newport encourages us to create rituals of deep work. A ritual can be simple, choosing the same location, the same time, and the same setup for your deep work session. For example, maybe you always do your deep work in the library at 7 a.m. with your phone left at home. Or maybe you always work in a quiet cafe with headphones on, using the same playlist. By turning focus into a habit, you reduce the energy needed to get started. Another powerful method is time blocking. Instead of leaving your day open to randomness, you plan it hour by hour. You literally block out chunks of time dedicated to deep work, shallow work, breaks, and even rest. This does two things. First, it forces you to decide in advance what matters. Second, it prevents shallow tasks from creeping into your deep work slots. Many successful people, from Benjamin Franklin in the 18th century to modern CEOs, have used time blocking to protect their focus. Newport also talks about the different philosophies of scheduling deep work. For example, the monastic philosophy, eliminate or radically reduce shallow work and spend most of your time in deep focus. This is what writers like J.K. Rowling did when finishing their books, disappearing into solitude. The bimodal philosophy, split your time into clearly defined deep and shallow periods. For instance, spend 2 days a week in total isolation for deep work, and the rest handling other tasks. The rhythmic philosophy, make deep work a daily routine. For example, working deeply every morning from 8 to 12. The journalistic philosophy, fit deep work into your day whenever possible, like a journalist finding windows of time between unpredictable events. Most people benefit from the rhythmic approach, making deep work a daily, non-negotiable ritual. But here's the thing, working deeply doesn't just mean work harder. It also means protecting your focus from enemies. One of those enemies is multitasking. Newport makes it clear, multitasking is a myth. Your brain cannot truly focus on two complex things at once. What you're really doing is rapid task switching, and each switch leaves behind attention residue. That's why if you check Twitter while writing an essay, part of your mind is still on Twitter, and your essay suffers. The key to working deeply is to give one task your full, undivided attention. This brings us to another critical concept Newport emphasizes, the shutdown ritual. At the end of your workday, you should deliberately shut down your work and disconnect. Why? Because your mind needs boundaries. If you're constantly half-working, checking emails at dinner, brainstorming projects while trying to sleep, you'll never truly focus during work hours, nor truly relax during off hours. A shutdown ritual might be as simple as writing down what you accomplished, noting what's left for tomorrow, and then saying a phrase like, "shutdown complete." It sounds silly, but it trains your brain to trust that work is done for the day, freeing you to recharge. So Rule 1, work deeply, teaches us that deep focus isn't an accident. It's designed. You must create systems, rituals, and boundaries that allow depth to flourish. Now let's move to Rule 2, embrace boredom. At first, this might sound strange. Why should boredom matter in a book about productivity? But Newport makes a brilliant point. Our brains have been rewired by constant stimulation. We are addicted to novelty. The moment we feel even a hint of boredom, we reach for our phones. Waiting in line at the grocery store? Open Instagram. Stuck in traffic? Scroll Twitter. Watching TV? You're also checking WhatsApp. Our brains have been trained to expect constant entertainment and stimulation. But here's the problem. If your brain is always chasing distraction, it loses the ability to focus deeply when you actually need it. Imagine trying to run a marathon when you've only ever taken 30-second sprints. That's what deep work feels like if you've trained your brain on endless dopamine hits from social media. So Newport's advice is radical. You must train your mind to embrace boredom. Instead of filling every spare moment with stimulation, allow yourself to be bored. Let your brain rest. Resist the urge to check your phone. Sit with silence. One technique Newport suggests is productive meditation. This doesn't mean traditional meditation, but rather choosing a single difficult problem to think about while doing a low-stress activity, like walking or jogging. The challenge is to keep your focus on the problem instead of letting your mind drift. Every time you catch yourself distracted, gently return to the problem. Over time, this strengthens your concentration muscles. Another strategy is to schedule your distractions. Instead of trying to quit social media cold turkey, set specific times when you allow yourself to check it. Say, 20 minutes at 5 p.m. The rest of the time, resist the urge. This builds discipline and shows you that you are in control of your attention, not the other way around. The underlying message of Rule 2 is this: focus is a skill, and like any skill, it requires training. If you always give in to boredom, you'll never be able to sustain deep work. But if you deliberately practice resisting distraction, you'll find that your ability to focus grows stronger over time. To sum up, Rule 1 teaches us to design our life for deep work through rituals, routines, time blocking, and shutdowns. Rule 2 teaches us to train our minds for depth by resisting distraction, embracing boredom, and practicing focus like a muscle. Together, these two rules form the foundation of deep work. They shift us from being reactive, shallow workers to being intentional, focused creators. We've already seen how to work deeply and how to embrace boredom, but Newport doesn't stop there. If we truly want to build a life of focus, we must also deal with the biggest enemies of deep work. And in our modern age, those enemies often hide in plain sight. They are the apps we love, the small tasks we defend, the habits we convince ourselves are harmless. Rules 3 and 4 are about confronting those enemies head-on. Rule 3: quit social media. Now, let's be honest. When you hear this rule, your first reaction might be, "That's impossible. How can anyone quit social media in today's world?" After all, we use Instagram to connect with friends, LinkedIn to network, Twitter to stay updated, YouTube for learning, and countless other platforms for both personal and professional reasons. Social media feels almost as essential as electricity or running water. But Newport challenges us to see it differently. He argues that most people think about tools like social media with a maximalist mindset. In other words, if a tool offers any possible benefit, we convince ourselves we must use it. Instagram helps me keep up with friends? I'll use it. Twitter gives me news? I'll use it. LinkedIn helps me connect with colleagues? I'll use it. But here's the trap. When you add up dozens of such tools, your time and attention get scattered into 1,000 fragments. Each one might have a small benefit, but together they drain your focus and prevent you from going deep. Instead, Newport suggests adopting the craftsman mindset. A craftsman doesn't choose his tools based on what's popular or convenient. He chooses them based on whether they make a significant difference to the quality of his craft. A carpenter doesn't buy every tool in the store. He chooses only the ones that help him create excellent furniture. In the same way, we should ask, does this tool bring me significant positive benefit? If not, it doesn't deserve a place in our lives. Think about your own use of social media. Be brutally honest. Is it giving you significant benefits? Or is it mostly keeping you distracted, entertained, and shallow? Many people justify it as networking or staying connected, but if you analyze it carefully, you may realize that the actual benefit is tiny compared to the cost. The cost isn't just time spent scrolling, it's the destruction of your ability to focus. Every time you check your phone in the middle of work, you lose momentum. Every time you chase likes and comments, you reinforce the habit of seeking shallow validation instead of creating deep value. Newport doesn't say you must quit everything forever. Instead, he suggests running experiments. For example, try quitting one platform for 30 days. At the end, ask yourself, did I miss it? Did it affect my career or relationships in a meaningful way? If the answer is no, then that platform didn't deserve your attention in the first place. Many people are shocked when they try this and realize that life goes on perfectly fine, sometimes even better, without constant scrolling. He also emphasizes that social media companies are not neutral. Their entire business model is to keep you hooked for as long as possible. The smartest engineers in the world work on making their apps addictive. Every notification, every infinite scroll, every red badge is designed to hijack your brain's dopamine system. When you fight against social media, you're not fighting against boredom. You're fighting against billion-dollar companies designed to exploit your attention. That's why quitting or minimizing these tools is so crucial if you want to protect your ability to go deep. Now, let's move to Rule 4, drain the shallows. If Rule 3 is about protecting your focus from external distractions, Rule 4 is about protecting it from internal ones. Because even if you quit social media, your day can still be consumed by shallow work, emails, meetings, admin tasks, busy work. Newport's message here is clear. You must minimize shallow work ruthlessly, because it will expand to fill your entire schedule if you let it. Shallow work is seductive because it feels productive. Replying to an email gives you instant gratification. Attending a meeting makes you feel important. Checking analytics makes you feel informed. But these tasks rarely move the needle. They consume time, energy, and attention that could have gone into deep work. That's why Newport urges us to drain the shallows, to cut them down, contain them, and prevent them from dominating our lives. How do we do this? One powerful method is time blocking with hard limits. Newport himself follows a strict rule. He never works past 5:30 p.m. This might sound extreme, but here's the genius of it. By setting a hard boundary on work hours, you're forced to prioritize. You don't have time to waste on shallow tasks, because you must finish the important ones before the day ends. When your time is scarce, you naturally cut out the trivial and focus on the meaningful. Another technique is the shutdown ritual we discussed earlier. At the end of the day, consciously close all open loops, plan for tomorrow, and then shut down completely. This keeps shallow tasks from spilling into your evenings and weekends. You can also batch shallow work instead of letting it interrupt you constantly. For example, instead of checking email 20 times a day, check it twice. Say, at 11 a.m. and 4 p.m. respond to everything in one focused burst, then get back to deep work. The same applies to admin tasks, calls, and other low-value activities. By batching, you reduce context switching and free up large blocks of time for depth. Another key strategy is learning to say no. This is one of the hardest things for many people. We fear disappointing others, so we say yes to every meeting, every request, every favor. But every yes to shallow work is a no to deep work. Newport reminds us that if you want to live a focused life, you must guard your time ruthlessly. That doesn't mean being rude, it means being clear about your priorities. If a meeting doesn't truly require your input, decline politely. If an email doesn't need a reply, archive it. If a task doesn't align with your goals, let it go. There's also a mindset shift involved. Many people treat shallow work as urgent and deep work as optional. They'll drop everything to reply to a message but postpone their big project indefinitely. Newport flips this. Treat deep work as sacred and shallow work as secondary. That means scheduling deep work first and letting shallow tasks fit around it, not the other way around. To make this more concrete, imagine two employees. The first spends his entire day answering emails instantly, attending every meeting, and being available 24/7. He looks busy, but he produces very little of real value. The second checks email only twice, says no to unimportant meetings, and spends 4 hours in deep work every morning. By the end of the month, he has created reports, solved problems, and built systems that actually matter. Who do you think will be more valuable to the company? Who will advance faster in their career? The answer is obvious. So Rule 4 is a call to action. Don't let the shallow consume you. Drain it, control it, and make space for what really matters. When we put Rules 3 and 4 together, the message becomes powerful. Quit or minimize social media, because it steals your focus. Drain shallow work, because it steals your time. When you do both, you create the space necessary for deep work to flourish. You build an environment where your mind is free from constant distraction, and your schedule is free from constant busyness. And in that space, your best work can finally emerge. We've explored the philosophy of deep work, understood the dangers of shallow work, and studied Newport's 4 rules. Work deeply, embrace boredom, quit social media, and drain the shallows. But now comes the most important question of all. How do we apply all of this in our own daily lives? Because reading about deep work is one thing, but actually living it is something else entirely. This final section is about turning ideas into practice, with real-world examples and strategies you can use starting today. Let's begin with a simple truth. Adopting deep work is not about radical overnight transformation. It's not about quitting your job, deleting all your apps, or moving to a monastery. Deep work is about small but deliberate changes that, over time, rewire the way you think, work, and live. The key is to start small, stay consistent, and gradually expand your capacity for focus. Step 1. Start with scheduling one deep work session a day. The most practical way to begin is by carving out just one block of uninterrupted time for deep work each day. It could be 60 minutes, 90 minutes, or even 2 hours if you can manage it. During this block, remove all distractions. Put your phone in another room, turn off Wi-Fi if possible, close all unnecessary tabs, and make it clear to others that you are not to be disturbed. This single act, protecting one deep work block every day, can change your life. Even if the rest of your day is filled with shallow work, this daily session ensures you're making real progress on something meaningful. For example, if you're a student, use that block to study a difficult subject, solve complex problems, or write essays. If you're a professional, use it to tackle your most demanding project. If you're a creator, use it to write, design, or produce. Over time, you can expand from one block to two, or even structure your entire day around deep work. But the first step is to prove to yourself that you can do it consistently. Step 2. Create a ritual of focus. Don't just decide to work deeply, ritualize it. Choose the same place, the same time, and even the same tools for your deep work. Maybe it's your desk with noise-canceling headphones at 7 a.m. every morning. Maybe it's a corner in a library every evening. By associating a specific environment with deep work, you train your brain to enter focus mode more easily. This is like athletes having pre-game rituals, tying shoes in a certain way, listening to the same playlist. Rituals reduce resistance and make deep work automatic. One powerful ritual is to set up a focus playlist, instrumental music you always play when entering deep work. Another is to light a candle, use a specific notebook, or start with a breathing exercise. The ritual doesn't matter as much as the consistency. Step 3. Track your progress. One reason people fail at deep work is they don't see immediate results. Shallow tasks give instant gratification, emails answered, messages sent, boxes ticked. Deep work is different. Its rewards come later. That's why it helps to track your sessions. Use a journal or a simple calendar where you log each deep work block you complete. Seeing the chain of focused days grow gives you motivation to keep going. You can also note what you accomplished during each session, so you start to connect your progress with your practice. Step 4. Use tools wisely, don't be used by them. Instead of blindly following trends, apply Newport's craftsman mindset to technology. For example, maybe you truly need LinkedIn for your career. Fine, keep it. But do you really need TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube all at once? Probably not. Cut ruthlessly, and keep only the tools that give significant benefit. And even with the tools you keep, control how you use them. For example, instead of checking email all day, set 2 fixed times for it. Instead of letting social media interrupt your work, schedule it for a specific 20-minute window. By taking control, you turn technology from a master into a servant. Step 5. Adopt a shutdown ritual. We mentioned this earlier, but it's worth repeating. Having a clear shutdown routine is crucial. At the end of the workday, review what you've accomplished, plan for tomorrow, and say a phrase like, "Shutdown complete." It may sound silly, but it sends a powerful signal to your brain that work is done. This prevents you from being in a constant state of half work, half rest, which drains energy. When you shut down fully, you allow your brain to recover, making your next deep work session more effective. Step 6. Respect rest and recovery. Deep work is demanding. You can't expect to do it for 12 hours straight every day. Even Newport admits that 4 hours of true deep work in a day is often the maximum most people can sustain. That's why rest and recovery are not luxuries, they are part of the process. Sleep well. Take real breaks. Spend time in nature. Exercise. Let your mind recharge. Many great thinkers, like Charles Darwin and Albert Einstein, structured their days with deep work in the morning and long walks or naps in the afternoon. They knew that creativity thrives on a balance of intense focus and deliberate rest. Case studies: how deep work changes lives. To make this practical, let's look at some real-world examples. Bill Gates, think weeks. When Bill Gates was running Microsoft, he would disappear twice a year for what he called think weeks. He'd go to a cabin, cut off communication, and spend an entire week reading, thinking, and brainstorming. Some of Microsoft's biggest innovations came from these deep focus retreats. Adam Grant, batching work. Organizational psychologist Adam Grant is a professor, researcher, and best-selling author. How does he manage so much? By batching his tasks. He sets aside large blocks of time for teaching, large blocks for research, and large blocks for writing, minimizing switching and maximizing depth. J.K. Rowling, writing in isolation. When she struggled to finish the last Harry Potter book, Rowling rented a hotel suite in Edinburgh, away from all distractions, and wrote there in solitude. That deep, focused effort allowed her to finish one of the most successful book series in history. Cal Newport himself. Interestingly, Cal Newport doesn't use social media at all. He built his academic career, wrote multiple best-selling books, and runs a successful blog, all without Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. His example proves that focus, not constant connectivity, is what really drives success. Why deep work is also about meaning. Beyond productivity, Newport argues that deep work is also about living a meaningful life. When you immerse yourself in a difficult, valuable task, you experience flow. Flow isn't just about getting things done, it's about happiness. Studies show that people are happiest not when they're relaxing passively, but when they're fully engaged in something challenging and worthwhile. Deep work gives you that experience regularly. It also gives you a sense of identity. Instead of defining yourself by busyness, "I'm so busy with meetings and emails," you define yourself by what you create. You become the person who wrote a book, built a company, solved a problem, designed a product, or created art. Shallow work may keep you busy, but deep work builds your legacy. The final call to action. So here's the challenge. Don't just consume this idea, apply it. Starting tomorrow, schedule one block of deep work. Protect it fiercely. Track it. Build rituals. Train your focus like a muscle. Cut the tools that don't serve you. Drain the shallow tasks that waste your time. And most importantly, embrace the idea that deep work is not just a productivity hack, it's a philosophy for living. Ask yourself, 5 years from now, do you want to look back and see thousands of hours lost to emails, notifications, and shallow tasks? Or do you want to see books written, businesses built, skills mastered, and meaningful contributions made? The choice is yours. Deep work is rare. Deep work is valuable. Deep work is meaningful. And if you cultivate it, you won't just stand out, you'll transform your life.